all that, getting hit multiple times. Coming out of that bike section, more drivers coming to blows.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome back to Sim Racers Group Formula 4 Racing on SMB. JR Gregory here with you on the call, along with my partner, Kennen Miller, and tonight's guest producer tonight, the master of the metaphor, the pride of Philadelphia, PA. It is racing Ron Mons, and as 2025 Season 3 winds down, Week 11 takes us to Interlagos, opened 85 years ago in Sao Paulo, Brazil, birthplace of Ayrton Senna. The track is named for F1 driver Jose Carlos Paz, who died in a private plane crash at 32. And in those 85 years, this track has hosted the Formula One Grand Prix, the World Endurance Championship, Brazilian stock cars, motorcycles, and much more. Today's configuration, 2.7 miles, 4.3 kilometers, and I don't have the number of turns here for reasons that are unknown to me. Our current configuration record, though, is held by Valtteri Bottas, a 110.540 set in a Mercedes W9 back in 2018. So, Kennen, we kind of let these F4 cars off the leash a little bit at your home track, VIR, last week, and this week is going to be a real test of patience in terms of getting into and getting out of the multiple low-speed corners at this challenging circuit.
Yeah, absolutely, JR. It's a very challenging track that we're here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and the drivers will find it. There's not a whole lot of time to relax. It really is kind of some high speed, low speed corners, and it's really going to be very dependent on the line. You can really lose a lot of time if you don't get into a corner very well, and you'll kind of find there will be a lot of drafting on the front stretch and a lot of hanging on through much of the twisting curves.
Yeah, we're going to definitely see a big draft, and calling your attention to that track map, that final corner, turn 12, coming onto that pit straightaway. Very critical to get a good run out of there. We're definitely going to have some heavy drafting down that pit straight, some contested entries into very difficult turn 1. And this is one of those tracks, Kennen. It's a little hard to believe that it's as old as it is, because it kind of has some diabolical design features that kind of show up in more modern Formula One courses, and that's probably the secret to its longevity. A lot of other tracks this old are no longer in use, but Interlagos still going strong. And as we look at our leaderboard right now, you see it is Jose Navas with the fast lap in practice, a 136.3, followed by Duvall, Swanbeck, Van Wagner, and Cy Nathan. And fans of our SRG Formula 4 broadcast will notice that Josh Leslie is missing from that list. And the reason for that is he has mathematically already sealed the title. So Josh Leslie is your champion of this season in F3 for Sim Racers Group, and he has elected to take that promotion and move on. So if you are a fan of Josh Leslie and want to see him in a slightly faster car, he'll be driving in our F3 broadcast tomorrow evening. And I believe, let me just run through the top 5 remaining for you. We are, due to technical problems, we don't have your points available, but I can tell you that Leslie, as I said, has P1 in the bag, but he is followed by Conway, Meyer, Duvall, and Navas. So there is still a fight going on for those remaining steps on the podium. It is pretty tight still up top, and you see all of those drivers here participating tonight at Interlagos. So looking forward to some good racing. And as I said, this one is a tough one, Kennen. As a GT3 driver, it never really feels like GT3 cars are comfortable on this track. And I got out here in the F4, and I got to say the F4 did a little better. It's lighter, more mechanical grip, and that aero helps it out quite a lot. So the F4 actually feels pretty good out here in a track that a lot of people get a little salty about driving on.
Yeah, Sao Paulo, it certainly suits a Formula car of any form a lot better than those GT cars. They're just so heavy, so much momentum to really make a GT car work well here, albeit they do create really great racing. But the Formula 4 car, it's a really nice mix and balance, not too much aerodynamics, it's not too overpowered, so it really allows to show the driver's skill as they kind of navigate this course. The course doesn't rely on very much high-speed corners, so it's not as much line particular as it is on your entry as well as your exit and being able to handle the brakes. And that's going to make a lot of the difference here on who we see. And Joshua Leslie, congratulations to him moving on up to the F3. But I'm kind of looking forward to today's race because I think we will see a very different race. It gives some people another opportunity, and there's definitely a lot of different positions that could change in the overall point standings, no matter whether it's the top or the bottom. So there's certainly opportunity for everybody. Everybody's going to push it a lot. I know it's a real favorite of anybody of Formula Racing, like a lot of the Sim Racer Group members are. So everybody kind of knows Sao Paulo. They know how to handle the track. They'll put on a good race for us tonight.
Yeah, I'll say, and take a look at that SDK timing tower over in the upper left of your screen. If you're not familiar with that, those intervals are color-coded. So the amber or orange intervals are all intervals under 1/2 a second. The yellow is 1/2 second up to a second. As you can see there, our entire field, with the exception of Alcazar in P18, our entire field, every interval is under a second, and most of them are under a 1/2 second. So these folks have been practicing, and they are ready to throw down in Leslie's absence. The cat is away. So the likes of Navas, Van Wagner, Duvall are going to take this opportunity to maybe get a win here, as Leslie has dominated this series so far through the first 10 weeks. But about a minute remaining in practice, we'll jump into a 15-minute open qualifying session and get this grid going for you. And riding along or looking at Tyler Hagen right now, when we get qualifying underway, we'll get a ride along with you and talk a little bit about some of the corners. But very tough stuff here. Hagen right now negotiating this interior portion of Interlagos. And as Kennen said, you really, really have to be good on the brakes, and you have to be good at timing, getting the power down out of those slow corners, and that's really the big fight. And here is that critical corner I was talking about earlier. You got to be on the gas right here, really nail it. Use that outside curb. You see Hagen looking pretty good here. A little nip of the inside curb, letting that car go out to that added material there on the exit of that corner, and so critical to get a good run here. And that's going to be a make or break spot coming down the stretch in these cars. And I gotta say, Kennen, this track notorious for tire wear, and I think we're gonna see some front tires blown off of these cars before this one's over.
Yeah, it'll certainly affect even in a 20-minute race. We're going to see some drivers that are going to try to be a little more conservative on the start. They're going to want to save that tire wear a little bit. There's definitely a lot of front end with the heavy braking, as well as even the rear end, the way you have to drive the cars out. You're going to use a lot of heat as much as the wear, and the tires will be hot to navigate the corners. So it makes for an interesting mix. I think we're going to see a faster lap time in qualifying than what we just saw in practice. And that's going to be good for the way it kind of pushes. It's sort of a cloudy, gloomy day here. The track's cool. And that works really in the favor of the Formula 4 car, and that's just going to create faster lap time. So I think the cars will keep getting faster and faster. Everybody will figure out the line a little bit more, and I think it's going to be set up for quite a good race, really. I know I've said that earlier, but we're looking at a really good race where Sao Paulo, it really offers an opportunity where there's a lot of drafting. You'll see cars really kind of following each other, almost where the back car is getting an advantage just by only having to follow, where they wouldn't really maybe create that time by themselves. So it keeps people sort of stacked up. That final corner is huge for the run into turn one. It's one of the best opportunities to make advantages of passing. So it's everything set up is really a perfect racetrack. It's why we see such a classic racetrack like this still existing today.
Yeah, and you're right about the weather situation. These drivers getting a major break from the iRacing weather gods. August in Brazil, it can be brutal out here. I think this track is the track I've seen the highest track temp of about 55 C, which is ridiculous. But right now, ambient temperature, cool, 68 and overcast. The track temp only 87. So these drivers are getting a huge break on that. This place can get super greasy and the track can get super hot out here, and they're going to get to avoid that. But 1 minute now into qualifying, a minute 36. These laps are going to tick by fairly quickly, so we should be seeing some laps coming in here shortly. We'll ride along with Novice now, and here's this tough entry into this Senna S. You got to be on the power right here is the key to this combination. Very, very tough. Got to set up the exit of this one and have a little short blast here down this little mini straight and heading into this turn 4 and 5 combo. And who can forget Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton here on more than one occasion. Got a trail break through this first part, and careful about the off tracks right there. And we should mention that Kennen, if Interlagos, at least this version of it here on iRacing, is an absolute 1X trap. All over the place, you're picking up incident points, so these drivers are going to have to be cautious here. And now Novice is heading into this slow and painful portion. You have to be so patient right here. Second gear, roll on the power. You don't want to wait too long, but if you get on the power too early, these cars will loop, and we're going to be seeing that in this race. On the power here now, and now we're through the tight stuff. Let it open up a little bit. Here's another spot where you can rack up some off tracks. You want to set up this one from the right, nip that inside curb, let the car wash out all the way to the grass. Very good line there by Novice. And yeah, that is inbound, folks, and that is the way you get a run onto this pit straight, which we're approaching now. So that is a very quick lap from Novice. We'll see what kind of time he gets out of that one. Looks pretty good. Van Wagner too. See a couple purple sectors out of him. So we're going to be getting some hot laps on the board here pretty quickly. And Novice does set a 136.4. Here comes Duvall with a 37.3 as the first laps beginning to come in. But these drivers really benefiting from these cold track temps.
Yeah, the cold track temps are really helping out. I think the car's having a really good grip and speed. It is worth noting the humidity is a little high, 95%, but just as overcast and all it is, I think it kind of balances out. The track's going to have plenty of grip in it. I don't think it's much for the drivers to have to worry about. And Jose Navas put down a really spectacular first opening lap, so we'll have to see if he can maybe lighten up the car a little bit on fuel through a few more laps and put something a little better. He's only about a tenth and a half off of his best time in practice on an opening lap. And Jason Trantham just jumping to the top of the board too. Not too many people really sitting too far off of their practice times right now. So I think you allow these cars to lighten the load a little bit. I don't know if you'll see anybody really go to take tires. And that was quite a miraculous save there by, I don't know who that was. Dan Swanbeck, I believe, the 7. Yeah. Dan Swanbeck really having to fight the car the whole way to get to the backstretch. But they'll find a little more time than I think what they've got. I think you'll see times improve. We don't always see that every week here in the Formula 4 League. It seems like sometimes the track either gets too warm as the session ends during qualifying, but I think here things are going to be pretty neutral. The cars won't put too much heat into the track, and that's going to allow the times to kind of drop as we get closer to the end of the session.
Yeah, too right. And time's really looking good, and I'm just shocked by this track temperature. Seems like every time we go to Interlagos, it's buck 20, buck 30 track temperature, which is very, very makes a difficult track even more difficult as we watch Duvall now coming down the Senna S in that lucky number 13 car. And we talk about the curbs sometimes, Ken, with these F4 cars. They don't really like the curbs. They don't like the suspension doesn't like bouncing over the curbs. The wings don't like being lifted up off of the asphalt. But I'll tell you, Interlagos is one of those tracks, particularly that opening section, the Senna S's. Curbs are absolutely mandatory, and we are probably going to see these cars struggling a little bit, bombing down that hill, banging over the curbs, because you really have to drive on them right and left coming down the hill.
Yes, certainly. And as you can kind of see while we're looking at Ken Glasser going into turn 1, they come up over the crest and are actually going slightly downhill entering turn 1. It allows for a heavy opportunity for brake lockup, and it's a very fast, hard braking corner. You see some cars on the inside when they're trying to make a pass, they will lock up the left front and right front, and they kind of slide it wide. They're not able to get the car to turn in the way they think it should. So you utilize those curbs as much as you can. You really just want to straight line that whole area. I do think that sometimes the iRacing camera crew that we've got out here and all, just the way it looks, it doesn't really show our fans out here just how steep some of those curbs can be. I mean, they are real gators in some areas of the track, and just the depth between each crevice of the curbing can really affect the car and unsettle it so easily. So you just have to know which curbs you can use, which ones you can't, and that's kind of where you create the fastest line when you're getting around really difficult, quite mountainous track for being right next to the great city of Sao Paulo. It's quite an interesting little track. Nothing flat. It's not a go-kart track by any means, and it'll definitely affect the way the handling works, how you want to play on the curbs.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we are about 7 minutes into qualifying, 8 minutes remaining, and with these laps ticking over about 90 seconds a lap here, I would sure consider trying another set of tires, Kennen, maybe 2 sets. They take about 2 laps to get to the sweet spot and then fall off a little bit, and seems like these drivers might be wise to take advantage of fresh rubber on a lightened fuel load as this qualifying session winds down. But we are right about the halfway point right now. It is Navas from Meyer, from Trantham, from Guyton, from Duvall up top. Then it's Chia, Estep, Hagen, Clark, and Ken Glasser. Looks like we're going to run about a 13-car grid out here in Sao Paulo. But so far, Navas takes another bite out of his fast lap. He's 136.464 now, about 2/10 ahead of Meyer, who has a 2-second gap back to Trantham in P3.
Yeah, Trantham's kind of really been showing himself pretty well here. He didn't have the greatest lap time, 136.8 in practice. He's sitting third on the board with a 136.9, but there were certainly several drivers that did best that 136.8 in practice. So he's held on strong in third. I do agree. I kind of see your point. Tires could be optimal here. I just wonder, I guess you've got to be smart and take the fresh tires, but make sure that your crew does not add fuel to the race car. I think the lighter you can get the car here is going to help it maneuver through the tight turns a little better. That's where you can find a lot of speed. I don't know how much of a difference 3 or 4 laps on the tires will really do here. And quite a good entry by Dan Clark. He really threw it over the curbs there. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on his lap and see what he's coming through with. And even Embry Hyde is faster in 2 of her sectors so far on her laps. So it's quite a little bit of improvement here. And with just under 6 minutes left in qualifying, I think everybody's got another 3 or 4 hot laps that they'll be able to complete. As long as they can get to that start-finish line before the checkered flag comes out, they'll earn themselves that extra 90 seconds to get another lap in.
Yeah, it can be critical. And ask and you shall receive. Jose Navas has come in for tires, as have Hagen and Aaron Van Wagner. So we'll keep an eye on those drivers and see if they can get any benefit out of that fresh rubber. As I said, probably take 2 laps to get them into their ideal kind of qualifying sweet spot. And as it is right now, Navas, as you can see on our timing tower, got about a 0.2 lead on P2, got about 0.6 on P3. So Navas in complete ownership of Jose Carlos Paz circuit at the moment. And he just needs to hang on for 5 more minutes, but he is sitting pretty right now for looking at pole. So it's Navas from Meyer, from Trantham, from Swanbeck, from Guyton. And here comes Ken Estep into the pits. He is going to try some new tires as well. Actually, Estep showing a black flag now. He might have come into the pits hot and gotten a speeding penalty there. I'm not sure what that is about, so we'll see what we can find out about that. Looks like Alcazar in for tires as well, so waiting for those times to come in on fresh rubber so far. Navas with a 139 as he's warming that fresh rubber, and we'll keep an eye and see if these folks are benefiting from that.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Jose Navas can hold on to the pole. It seems like a lot of drivers are still leaving out some time. It's not very often that we look down our leaderboard there on the left side of the screen and we see that the top 15 is separated between almost 3 seconds. You know, it's a pretty big gap just in hot lap times for what we're used to this field. And it really is just kind of a testament to how difficult the track is, the way the line is. We've certainly seen, just like there, Jose Navas having to kind of avoid slower traffic in front of him and still try to complete a fast time. It really can find yourself stacked up and backed up, just really depending where you're at on the track. And as we always talk about, the open qualifying session that we do in the Sim Racers Group Formula 4 series, it really does create challenges because you do have to manage traffic. You do have to find a decent gap. If you run up on a car in the wrong corner, I mean, you may as well throw the lap away. So it's a lot of different moving parts that the drivers are having to navigate right now. Navas has proven to be the best at it. And I believe we're seeing him come towards the line, and he's cutting through. Nice cut almost into the pit lane. I thought he could have been pitting there. And Aaron Van Wagner actually beat his time, so we'll have to see if he can clinch it back. And I think he may have gotten it off track, so no time counted. So Aaron Van Wagner somehow just right up to the top of the board, almost a 10th quicker. That's an interesting person to kind of see at the top of the board. Not a name we typically mention all the time, and he's certainly driving aggressive as we see and looking to get everything he can out of this Formula 4 race machine.
Yeah, Van Wagner taking advantage of that fresh rubber. He is one of the competitors who pitted, and he does nip Navas by about 1,100, so throwing down a 136.349. And you got to think, Kennen, that there still may be a little bit more time in that F4 car. Take a look at his intervals. Don't see him at the moment, but it's going to be right now Van Wagner from Navas from Meyer. Time ticking down, about 2 minutes remaining, 1 or 2 laps for most drivers. So Navas and Van Wagner, I think, went in for about the same time. So their tires similar age here, and somebody is getting a tow from, oh, that's Van Wagner getting a tow here, getting the tow at the perfect time. And he may be in a position to take a little bit more time out of his fast lap. See how that goes as he comes across the line. And what does he get out of that? No change. Huh, that's interesting.
He must have just overdrove the curb a little bit. It looked like such a clean lap. Just somewhere he must have just slightly crossed and gotten a 1X. I'm very surprised by that, but we know this is a track hard on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned practice, Kennen, and this track, man, it is diabolical. It takes a ton of practice just learning where the track limits are. It seems like you can go four wheels off in some spots and just nudge the white line in other spots, and you can pick up an X. So just learning that is a handful around here at Interlagos, and you can probably hear the frustration in my voice. I've done a lot more GT3 laps out here than I ever wanted to, and I tell you, those 1Xs get old pretty quickly. And here is Novice now coming out of the pits, and he is going to have he's not going to do it. He has 30 seconds to get back around, so not really sure what he has planned for this lap, but qualifying definitely winding down. As Kennen said, if you get across the line before the timer hits 0, you get another lap, but that is not going to be happening for Novice, and it is going to be happening, it appears, for Van Wagner. It's going to be very, very close. You see it ticking down, 57, 58, 59, 15. Oh, and he doesn't quite get there, 100 or so feet short. Van Wagner is not going to get another lap, but he's probably undeterred by that. He is going to have the pole, barring a miracle.
And he bested that time.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah, he did. 136.2. I'm seeing it. Yeah, absolutely. He did take a bite out of that pole lap. So Van Wagner, it looked like Novice had a pretty good grip on that pole. Van Wagner comes through and snatches it away at the end.
Yeah, that was a pretty good final lap by Aaron Van Wagner. He certainly tried to establish himself almost at a 2/10 gap. And even throughout the field, we sort of saw it get a little closer. I mean, all the way to the top 10 is really only separated by about a second and a half, which is a pretty minimal gap for a track like Interlagos. I know it'll create some separation, but when we get everybody lined up on the starting grid and hot and ready to dive into turn one, I think a lot of people feel like they left something out on the table in this qualifying session. I know there was certainly the off tracks on what looked like really good laps for Novice, and I don't think he thinks the 4.63 is the best lap that he has at this track. So it'll be interesting. Everybody's going to be geared up to go into turn one here in just about a minute or so as we see all the final laps getting completed. And Dan Swanbeck coming across the line. I had him Duvall increase his time. Swanbeck, I think, maybe will stay right where he is in 7th, and that does appear to be the case. So, yeah, it's definitely a little close field, and he takes a little celebratory spin into turn one. So we know that qualifying is starting to wind down. The crew's getting these cars ready to get on the grid, and it's going to be pretty good, interesting racing. Just looking up through the gaps between driver to driver, nobody's really a whole lot less than a 10th behind the person in front of them. I know that kind of spreads out throughout the field, but 1/10 gain may be an extra position in the race.
Yeah, our timing tower there painted with that those orange intervals of less than 1/2 a second. So it has really been great to see these drivers develop over this season. This is the developmental league conducted by Sim Racers Group with the goal to move the quick drivers up to F3. And if you're interested in watching some of that, we'll have that on SMB tomorrow night, the F3 drivers. But we're going to have the starting grid for you in just a moment, and it is going to be Van Wagner on pole, who closes the deal late. And there we go. There is your starting grid. It will be Van Wagner lined up next to Jose Navas in row 1. Then it'll be Greg Meyer next to Jason Trantham. In row 3, it's Adam Duvall next to Jacob Guyton. Dan Swanbeck next to Ken Estep. It'll be Vase next to Ryan Chia in row 5. Ken Glasser will line up next to Dan Clark in 11 and 12. That will be followed by Michael Huynh lined up next to Tyler Hagan. Oops, I completely lost my spot. Then it's going to be Samudio next to Embriette Hyde. Nemo Alcazar will line up next to Cy Nathan, who did. Yeah, I guess he did set a qualifying time. So we're going to grid 18 cars here, and we'll get this one underway here momentarily. Looks like we've got about 1 minute to wait for the start as these cars get gridded up. And it looks like, let's see, Van Wagner not out there yet. So that is, yeah, there we go. There is Van Wagner in that number 6, almost McDonald's livery there with the red and yellow, but he's going to have the outside line. You see he has a little bit ahead of Navis there, but he'll have the outside entry into that tricky turn 1. So job 1 for Van Wagner is going to be to get it off the line smoothly. Job 2 is going to be to move over and cover off the inside from Navis, and we are green, and so far so good. Van Wagner looking good, but Navis is going to have an opportunity here. Van Wagner was not able to close that off. Navis sticks it through. Greg Meyer is going to follow him through. So things going from bad to worse for Van Wagner. Oh
no.
My goodness. And it is a yard sale in turn 2. Oh my goodness. And these drivers have been pretty good, Kennen, this season in getting off the line clean, and didn't happen that time, thankfully. Damage off, but what a disaster there in turn 2, and we'll have a replay of that. But speaking of disasters, Van Wagner, after that brilliant qualifying session, completely swamped off the start, does not cover off the inside. Navis gets through, and Greg Meyer follows him. So it's Navis from Meyer, from Van Wagner, from Duval, and look at Vase up 4 in P5. Ken Glasser also with a hot start up in P6, and you got to think that Glasser may have benefited from that collision we saw coming through the Senna S.
Yeah, Ken Glasser, and he talks about it every time we get an opportunity to interview him at the end of these races. He keeps things clean. He takes the safe route around stuff. We'll have to go back and look at that replay. I couldn't quite see it from the press box here, but it looked like a car maybe got loose and almost had to come to a near complete stop, and then everything just kind of accordioned behind him. So that just kind of created a mess. Everybody was able to get started pretty good, but yeah, we'll see. Navis just gets a phenomenal start. He's able to take it on Wagner. You can see Wagner, he's having trouble with the car. It's not getting up through the gears like you think. Meyer looks to the outside and can kind of recognize he's not getting up to speed right, and cuts underneath. A fantastic move. And then you see, looks like that's the 20 car of, who is that? I don't know who that is. So Trantham in the 28 gets a little loose, and then everyone behind just really nowhere to go when you're too wide like that, just having to stop. So that is a really tough start. Everybody did kind of get going quickly, and all kind of got going quickly together. So they're still all around to fight throughout the rest of the race, but really separates about the top 4 or 5 to really settle this one, I think, today.
Yeah, and riding along with Swanbeck, a replay of that start, and bang, oh my goodness, body panels flying, and that is Trantham over rotating there on cold tires in turn 1. Such a tough spot in the best of circumstances, and the worst of circumstances unfolding for Trantham. He may have had a little help from Guyton there, and thankfully, Kennen, as we said, damage is off. This is a developmental league that emphasizes seat time, and if damage was on, we would have lost about half the field right there. So it's a good good thing that they elected to go that way. And there has been some action up front. It looks like Navis now running in P1, followed by Van Wagner and Meyer. So Van Wagner has got back past Meyer, and now wants to hunt down Navis with about a 0.3 gap ahead. So, and here they come down the pit straight. You see him moving way over to shorten the track there, driving partially on the pit entry. Navis will try to cover the inside, but Van Wagner will try him on the outside. This outside move is doable. Not going to happen this time. No, Navis will hang on, and not sure what happened to Meyer, but Meyer has been dropped by Van Wagner to the tune of about 0.8, and behind Meyer, a chasm, 3 seconds to Duval, another large interval back to Swanbeck. And so that little kerfuffle at the beginning completely busted up the front of this field, leaving Navis, Van Wagner, and Meyer to drive away. Duval and Swanbeck kind of in no man's land. Actually, Swanbeck leading a train now of a number of cars as you see all those orange intervals. So the action right now is going to be Swanbeck fighting off Trantham, Glasser, Vase, Huynh, Guyton, Chia, a whole pack of cars there with about a 3-second gap covering.
Yeah, and we see Navas, Van Wagner, Meyer. Those are the three we've been talking about really the whole broadcast so far. So it's not particularly surprising to see that they've broken out to such a good gap. And there's certainly been a little bit of contact that's made things change. And we've seen, looks like the field is slowly starting to see, as you see on the scoring boards, seeing a little more yellow and white numbers than the orange. But everybody's sort of settling in here. Navas touches, though. Wow, Navas looking for an outside move. That's a dangerous place to do that. You really can't do that in the final corner. It's just treacherous, but maybe you can get a toe coming down the front stretch, get a chance looking back into one.
And Van Wagner elbows out, stuffs it down the inside of that final corner, sends Navas into the grass with a pretty hard shot there. And again, thankfully, damage off. That definitely could have resulted in some wheel or suspension damage. But Van Wagner has pushed his way back to the front after a rough start. And that podium you're looking at right there, Van Wagner, Navas from Meyer. That is how they qualified. So that front has reshuffled back to their qualifying order. And Van Wagner showing that he really does have pace and have racecraft and no shortage of aggression. And I don't know a lot about race cars, Kennen, but I'm going to say that is an off when you're that far off into the green. And that's one of those places, those off tracks are going to pile up, and you can go out there a time or two. But if you make a habit of it, you could end up with a drive-through penalty that will certainly change the tenor of your race in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. The one-offs, they obviously don't necessarily affect you. And we're going to look at Sign Nathan here coming through the final corner, and just a little too strong, a little too much entry, and spins it around. Thankfully, didn't hit nothing. He gets on his way pretty comfortably. Certainly loses a spot. I think that's Nima Alcazar getting ready to go by him there underneath. And yeah, the 1Xs will add up, but it is something you can use to your advantage as well. If you know you can take a little bit extra on a corner and you have some 1Xs to give with the off tracks, you kind of got to use them. You know what your limit is to deal with the penalty. Save him for a good spot in the race. And as you can see, Van Wagner with a really wide exit out of turn 3, and now he's opened things up to almost 2 seconds over Jose Navas. He's really having to deal with the fight from Greg Meyer that I think he doesn't want to have to deal with right now. And it's in many ways costing them both a little bit of time. And Meyer looks to the outside, has to think better of it, and follows back in line. But they're both kind of watching the run for the win walk away from him while they're playing around for fight for second.
Yeah, Van Wagner's got to be loving this fighting going on behind him. Very quickly dropped Navas to the tune of about 2 seconds. And Navas and Meyer dicing heavily here. All the action right now for P2. And the field's starting to open up a little bit, Kennen. Whoa! And there goes Guyton. Goes for a little ride, spits off some body panels. And speaking of Max and Lewis Hamilton, that's where they had some kerfuffleage a couple years ago that was controversial. Very tough right there. It's tempting to try to stick it down the inside of turn 4, especially if you have a draft, but everybody has to cooperate. And what happens there? Oh, that was kind of odd. Guyton might have had a little help there. Looks like he just completely got loose and washed out of that one, and didn't really see how that started. But yeah, Kennen, it's you do see attacks there into turn 4. It's easy to get a draft. It's easy to take advantage of somebody getting a poor exit out of those Senna S's, and once the door is open. And here is Guyton now, and
I think he lost it all on his own. He collected Vase there and managed to knock him off the track, but looks like he just got a little overzealous. And kind of to your point, you get that draft, a nice toe down the backstretch running into, I guess that's turn 4 we're looking at there. And you really forget that the whole exit of that corner is quite a long, high-speed straightaway for what this track is. And you can really cost yourself so much on exit by fighting on the inside, getting out of that corner. You really want to do everything you can to open that corner up and be able to carry your speed on the exit. It it's quite a long run before you really get into the tricky slow part with the couple kind of hairpins that you deal with in the middle of the track.
Yeah, and turn 4 definitely invites trail braking to help the car rotate right there coming off of this fast straightaway, and just a little bit too much trail braking will cause it to over rotate and snap, as you saw Guyton there riding along with Ken Estep right now. Estep looking ahead at Guyton, and my goodness, this field has really spread out. Seemed like a couple laps ago it was completely orange from top to bottom, and now it is almost completely intervals over a second. And there's Estep a little early on the throttle right there, Kennen. And I told you that these drivers need to be patient. You want to time it right, get on the power as soon as you can, but if you get a little bit too early, these things will loop in a heartbeat. And something going on up front with Meyer, and not sure if he had help with that. We'll ride along with him. Here he is on that critical last left-hander coming onto the pit straight, and again over rotating right there, and such a tricky corner on such a tricky track. And you come up to that, Kennen, you know how important it is. You've got the adrenaline flowing because you're fighting the person in front of you. You know you need a good exit, and Meyer just overcooking a little bit there, throwing it all the way, falls all the way to P7. And now he's coming down the Senna S's with overheated rear tires, and he needs to dial it back a notch, take a breath, and reassess his situation, because things have changed a lot for Meyer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of mistake you really don't want to see. He was looking so well, and Novice is still hanging on to Van Wagner pretty good. I was overhearing on the scanner a little bit. Greg Meyer was making sure to make sure Jose Navas didn't lose Aaron Van Wagner when we saw them racing side by side so hard. And unfortunately, it kind of gets the best of him. It really does go back to your point, though. You've got to wait to get on the gas of this track. And a lot of that is because this track requires a lot more wheel input. And you see Meyer's gone off again, makes a very unsafe re-entry. I know the stewards up in the office will certainly have a discussion about that. That's a very dangerous re-entry, but he's thankful that he hangs onto the car. He's still got it in full in one piece as Ryan Chia gets by, and we'll look to move on. But you put so much wheel input into these corners. It's so important to make it fast. But what you have to give up with that is how much you're putting onto the accelerator, how much you're giving the brake, how much can you really balance the car by using your foot inputs, because it does. In a lot of tracks, you're kind of able to not use as much input and really rely on the gas and brake to turn the car. This track very much works the opposite, and you see the consequences of it. You lose the rear end so easily. Everything's kind of at a slight drift to get through the corner. This slip angle really plays such an important factor in making a nice lap here, and it's really kind of gotten the best of Greg Meyer so far in this race. He does still have about 8 minutes to see what he can recover over the next 6 seconds. If he can regain, may find himself fighting for a 4th place, but it can certainly go bad in a hurry when you make those mistakes.
And Meyer there, unable to resist the temptation of slipping it inside of Chia there into turn 1. I held my breath there for a moment, because Meyer has just been abusing these tires, and every time you have one of those big slides, you lose a ton of grip. It takes some time for them to recover, but Meyer doesn't have time. He was running in P3, wants back up there, so gets the pass done on Chia, and now Meyer looking ahead at Glasser. He's got about 8/10 up to Ken, and Meyer definitely has the pace here, but has run out of patience early and is looking at a recovery drive right now. And my goodness, Van Wagner, the beneficiary of all this stuff going on behind him, is a 3.5 second gap behind him, and a total of 7-second gap back to P3. So Van Wagner capitalizing on the absence of Leslie and making something happen here. And here's Glasser looking back at Meyer, and Meyer is going to go for it here. Glasser doesn't want really anything to do with that, and is Meyer going to take Chia with him? Then Glasser needs to pay attention to that, and it looks like Chia is going to get a free tow here. And will Chia take a little peek? Oh my goodness, that was close. Chia wiggling under braking there, almost gets into the back of Meyer, and that's going to cost him. And there goes Glasser now, as things are getting a little crazy here in Brazil.
Yeah, I think it's a real good point. Term we use a lot of times. It's called driving angry. And the more you see angry drivers, it tends to be a result of the drivers making mistakes themselves. They find themselves further back than they expected. They find that they're not doing what they do, or they make their own mistake. And you see Ken Glasser is just a victim of Ryan Chia's aggressiveness there. He really made an aggressive move to push on Greg Meyer, and it didn't quite work out. And unfortunately, it swung him back to the left. Ken Glasser just really nowhere to go. He's running a really nice line. He's got all the speed, and there's just not a whole lot you can do there. Ryan Chia really sacrificed taking a slower exit, and unfortunately, it bit Ken Glasser. It did bite Ryan Chia. I know he spun out too, but you really hate to see that. Ken Glasser, one of the cleanest drivers we do see in the Sim Racer Group Formula 4 Series, he tends to find himself in really good positions by not getting himself into trouble like that, and just an unfortunate victim right there. He finds himself in 10th place, really in quite a rough spot at this moment.
Yeah, very costly indeed to Glasser, although incredibly, he is up 1 from his qualifying position, breaking into the top 10 qualified in P11. And what is going on here? Taking a look at Novice now. And looks like Trantham has put down a heater. Trantham now has the fast lap of a 136.1, and Trantham must have got a tow. So Trantham looking good. And here's Trantham versus Duvall now. And you recall Trantham was involved in that turn 1, lap 1 incident, that huge wreck. But Trantham has clawed his way back up and has absolutely lit the wick. He's got Duvall right behind him, but Trantham has pushed his way back up onto the podium, up 1 position from his qualifying. So a good drive by him, and a quick shout out to Michael Huynh there in P7, our current hard charger, up 6. So Huynh keeping it nice and clean out here at Interlagos today, as Trantham here got Duvall all over him. Well, there's Huynh in that nice looking 83 car, and what has he got going on around him? He's got a pretty good gap ahead and behind. So Huynh in gap management mode right now with 4 seconds left. And Kennen, we talk about this when it gets down to about 5 minutes remaining in these races. If tires are going to start to cause problems, if tire wear, tire degradation is going to rear its head, now is about the time where we expect to see that. But so far so good. Up front, it is Van Wagner from Novice, from Trantham, and Trantham has a little train there of Duvall and Swanbeck. So Trantham right now in a podium position, but by no means safe, with a couple fast drivers reeling him in from behind.
Yeah, he's certainly got a little bit of a battle looking ahead. Is maybe 3, possibly 4 laps left? I would suggest probably more towards 3. And it's just going to be a little bit of a dogfight. Everybody's somewhat found themselves in a dogfight. And I think through what we've seen through major position changes, it's going to come down to more of not making a mistake. You don't want to do something where you lose the rear end or you spin out. You also don't want to do anything where you kick the rear end out and you give somebody else a little better run down the front stretch. It's going to set yourself up to get past. And as we're looking right now at Adam Duvall, and you see Dan Swanbeck, he's right on him. Swanbeck, sometimes we've noted earlier in the season, that is quite an aggressive driver. If Dan Swanbeck sees a gap, he is certainly not one too shy to take it. So we'll see what kind of happens and how they set him up. We know they're too far away to really do much on second place to Jose Navas. So it's just really settling itself on who's going to get the final spot on the podium today.
Yeah, and we'll have a little replay right now of little over rotation there coming down those Senna S's again. Very tricky stuff right there. You got to be on the curbs. You got to trail brake deep into turn 1, and easy to make a mistake there and blow your line for turn 2, as we saw Chia do, that resulted in him getting rear-ended. But here comes Trantham. He's got pressure from the outside by Duvall in that number 13 NASA car. Duvall sneaking around, sniffing around the outside, but nothing doing. And meanwhile, Swanbeck liking what he's seeing with Duvall going wide there. And notably, Swanbeck among this group, one of the quick runners, although strike that Trantham now has the fastest lap, but Swanbeck's fast lap is about 7/10 quicker than Duvall. So Swanbeck definitely as he gets close there. Swanbeck wants to make something happen. He wants that P4 and probably thinks he has a crack at Trantham, but with only a little over a minute remaining, if he's going to make something happen, he needs to make it happen right here.
Yeah, there's really time's running out. These are the best corners to really have an opportunity at taking a position. You can kind of get a chance to dive it a little harder. Swanbeck's wanting to look on the outside. Maybe he's trying to set himself up for a little better run going into the final couple corners and get himself on the straightaway, but they're really kind of holding the same gap right now. So I don't know. We'll really have to see what kind of advantage is given on this white flag lap.
Yeah, and here's Swanbeck. We'll take a look at him coming through that final corner. Got to nail the gas right here. And Swanbeck leaving a little bit of that corner exit on the table, but you see that gap falling. It's under 0.2 now as the draft goes to work. It's about 1,500. So watch it drop. Watch it drop. And what is Duvall going to do? He's going to have to defend here somehow, but he doesn't. He leaves the inside open, and here comes Swanbeck. It's going to be a battle of the late breakers down into turn one, and Swanbeck is going to make it happen. Squeaks it past Duvall, and look at that. He is all over Trantham. Look at him close down on Trantham. A little smooch there coming out of the Senna S's, and now all of a sudden Swanbeck is in position here to get that last podium position. We'll stay with this one and see what happens here into turn four, and that would never look good. Contact inevitable, and Adam Duvall is laughing all the way to the final step of the podium as Swanbeck rolls the dice, overcooks that inside entry in an attempt to get past, and the wheels absolutely fall off for him. Tough stuff.
That is really tough. I mean, we noted it. Swanbeck is by far probably the most aggressive driver in the field. When he sees an opportunity, he's willing to take it. He's one of the few drivers that's really given even this whole season Josh Leslie a good run. If we recall Indianapolis, he fought that man like a dog for good 10, 15 laps into that race. And here we see they both just run each other low on the entry. Swanbeck's right up against the left side line. Nobody's going to give an inch there on the final lap. And fortunately, they both pay the price for it. But Swanbeck really being the aggressor there. I know that's a second incident that we've seen so far today where the stewards are really going to want to take a look at that and maybe just have a discussion with Swanbeck, talk to him about, hey, man, you're really fast. You've really got some good speed, but we just found a way to clean up how we're going to execute those passes. And maybe we're not talking about you finishing fifth anymore. We're talking about you finishing third. So there's certainly more to learn and improve as we see the checkered flag and Van Wagner coming across and securing a pretty handed victory nearly start to finish. But really a thrilling race for third. We kind of hate to see things end that way, though. You know, we're really looking forward to a 3-car run to the start-finish line there.
Yeah, the wheels falling off of that one on the white flag lap, which happens so often. But yeah, Van Wagner is going to pull this one off from the pole. Van Wagner winning handily, about a 1.5 second gap after less than awesome start. Falls all the way to P3, manages to push his way back through. We'll have your finishers here in a second, but it's for now it's Van Wagner from Novice, from Duvall, from Trantham, from Swanbeck, and I think I want to see that. I think I want to see this again. There may have been a late move to the inside here by Trantham, and I mean, moving over in the braking zone. I don't know. Being a steward of this situation is outside my pay grade, but I'm sure that Cotcher and the crew are going to take a look at that potential block there into turn four, and very costly for both drivers. And Duvall just gets that last step on the podium handed to him. But we're going to look at it one more time here. Here's Swanbeck. There's a gap. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and call that block and moving under braking right there into turn four and causing that incident. So Swanbeck was looking good for that P3, and the wheels fell off right there. So tough way for his race to end.
Hey, you know, I look at that video, and I don't know if we have an opportunity, the production can show that one more time, but I think with the kind of speed that Dan Swanbeck was carrying into that corner, I don't know if that little bit of a move was going to change anything of what we saw in the result. I do see Trantham did kind of make a little bit of a second move there, maybe moved about a tire with more inside, but Swanbeck was carrying a lot of speed. He'd really already missed the braking point, and that car wasn't really slowing down without having a contact with Jason Trantham there. So that'll be quite a heated discussion in the meeting room with the stewards after the race. I know they'll probably both want to have a little bit of a discussion. You see Swanbeck going for it, but I mean, there's only so much room you have to give there. It really was Trantham's corner to begin with. I mean, you could almost even argue if you were on a Jason Trantham's team that he was already turning into the corner with such a low entry in the way that you have a wide exit that it wasn't as much of a block as him having no car inside and wanting to make the entry. So quite a big debate we'll have here. I don't know how it'll fully be decided, but when it comes down to the white flag lap and we know everybody's going for it, that's hard racing. And unfortunately, it doesn't always result in the best way. But you see Adam Duvall, he watches them both just kind of wash off clean. And like you said, I know he was just smiling. He played that very smart to play it safe, smooth. He took his position, and he found himself a way to get both of those back.
Yeah, and Duvall liked to be inside his helmet when he saw those cars come together, a cloud of smoke, and the path opening for him to get through for that P3. But fantastic race, and here are your final results. Aaron Van Wagner from the pole leads it. It's almost flag to flag. I think he was didn't lead a couple laps, but pushed his way back through and sealed the deal. Jose Navas will be in P2, Adam Duvall in P3. Then it's Jason Trantham and Dan Swanbeck. And again, I'm going to say for now, not trying to stir the pot, but something definitely happened there in turn 4 that needs to be sorted by the officials. Greg Meyer in P6, Michael Huynh in P7, and Huynh again, our hard charger, up 6. So good job by Huynh staying on his toes, keeping out of trouble through a fairly messy run at Interlagos. And it's Jacob Guyton in P8, then Bays in 9. Ryan Chia, after a couple of incidents, was running closer to the front, but a couple incidents caught up with him, ends up in P10. Glasser as well, a little bit of a rough one. Embriette Hyde kept her head down as usual, kept it frosty, and moved up 4 positions to land her in P12. Then it's Ken Estep in 13, Samudio in 14, Dan Clark in 15. Then it is Alcazar, Cy Nathan, and Tyler Hagen, taking rounding out the field in P18. So I'm going to take a quick look outside here, and we do have a couple of drivers waiting, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in Aaron Van Wagner.
Yes,
so Aaron, great drive out there today. And let's just go ahead and start by asking you about that start. Got absolutely swamped, lost 2 positions right off the bat. But how did you recover from that, keep your cool, and push your way back through into P1?
Yeah, I got a terrible start, and I found that turn 1 was, one of my worst turns outside of maybe that, whatever that downhill left-hander is, turn 5, where I kept going off today. But I kind of was tracking behind Jose and Greg, checking their pace, and after a few turns, I felt that I probably had a little bit more in me. So I did kind of squirm around Greg, and I did make contact with him and did get a 4X on it, but I didn't. Neither of us spun, which was great. And then was able to keep him behind, and then Jose, who's kind of my arch nemesis in this group. He's either hunting me from behind or I'm hunting him. So kind of same thing. Was lucky to stay in his draft. He's really, really fast on this track. But as long as I could stay in his draft, I was able to stick with him. Had a moment to get around him. Also had an incident, but a 0x incident, just we brushed. And he was, I think for a couple laps within a half second of me. And then it looked like he had an incident at one point, and it was just kind of off to the races from there.
Yeah, well, his fight with the car behind Meyer definitely did you a favor once you pushed through a novice. definitely had some pace out here. But you know, sometimes you look in rearview mirror, watch people fighting, and kind of drive off with a smile on your face, and they kind of let you get away fighting over P2. So great recovery drive. Way to keep it frosty after a rough start and take those opportunities. Had a couple aggressive moves, as you said, a little bit of wheel banging to get your way back up into P1, but a very nice drive and very well done. It must be nice to have Leslie out of the way and give some other people some opportunities to take that top step.
Yeah, without Leslie and Lloyd here, you know, Jose, Adam, Jason, Dan, you know, definitely boils down the group of competitors, and luckily we're all pretty closely matched, and it makes it way more fun when you don't have guys who are beating you by 15 seconds every week. But yeah, glad that Leslie's gone, glad he's moved on to bigger and better things, and he's an incredible talent. Jesus.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and I brought it up before that some of the times that he was putting down in these F4s were pretty similar to times being put down in public servers by 3 and 4K drivers. So Leslie for real, and look forward to see him in an F3 car here on Slow Motion Broadcasting tomorrow night. So, Aaron, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us. And as we wrap it up, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for doing this. This is awesome. Continue to enjoy it, and watching your YouTube channel is great. Thanks to Jose and Adam for racing me cleaner than I raced them, and and yeah, to Jason for putting this all together. Me and Lloyd are gonna fly up there in a couple weeks for the 6 hour and hang out in house, and for the 6 hour it'll be awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to that as well. And I heard there could be some celebrity appearances for that event, so I'm sure everyone's looking forward to a little bit of that. Well, great drive, Aaron, and looking forward to seeing you out there next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
All right, Kennen, looks like we have Jacob Guyton out there, so why don't you check in with him and see how his race went today.
Yeah, Jacob Guyton, I'm standing right here with him on the pit lane. Just a little bit of a tough race today. Jacob started 6th on the grid, ended up finishing in 8th. We all noted that it was a little bit of a tough start with a little bit of contact to kind of set you back. But overall, how do you feel like with this being the race that we had, how do you think you really did overall? It was quite an exciting race, very dramatic out there on the racetrack.
I've never driven Interlagos before. Did a little bit of practice last night, and just most practice was today. Really liked the track. There was a lot of fun battles to be had. Shout out to Sarab. We got into some contact later on the race a couple times. Definitely going to review the race and see if maybe I caused that, but overall, beginning of the race was okay. I mean, it just stuff happens, and other than that, it was a good race. It was fun.
Yeah, it looked like it really, from a lot of drivers' perspectives, it was a very challenging track. Saw a lot of sliding, certainly a fair bit more spinouts than we're used to seeing in the Sim Racers Group Formula 4 series, and certainly presented a challenge. So I guess you being brand new to the track, what area did you really find it most difficult to learn? There's certainly some high-speed corners that are still tight, and you've got to carry a lot of momentum. There's also a good mix of low-speed corners where the patience on the throttle is where you find yourself to be king. What did you find the most difficult when you were preparing for this weekend?
Honestly, I'm not sure which corner number it is. It's towards the end of the track. It's the uphill, after you go through the switchbacks, it's that little uphill double left. I was having a hard time finding the right braking point, trailing off, getting back on the gas, and just it was hard carrying speed through there. And I was just so afraid of going off, because you go over that curb right there and you're just in the grass and it's over. Other than that, the first little S was just kind of tricky to get right. Last night I was getting it pretty good, but had a little help with the racing line, so not remembering that, but the technicality of the track is what makes it fun. Like the double little switchback S's thing in the center of the track is just so much fun, especially when you get it right. You can rotate the car under brakes, and yeah, it's a tough track. All the corners are a challenge, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the best tracks really in the entire world, and it's why we still come here so often all the time. And it challenges drivers. It really takes the most out of it. And yeah, we've been kind of watching you on the replay just now going through the corner. You're talking about that 11, 12 leading you on to the front straightaway, that double left, it catches you off so hard if you don't hit it right. I can totally understand the challenges that you see it presented for you today. So moving forward, where do you see yourself getting better in the Formula 4 League? You got anybody you want to thank, give a shout out to while we wrap this little interview on up?
Yeah, I just working on my racecraft. I'm finding pace with the car. I'm getting comfortable driving it and putting in faster times. I just need to work on not touching other drivers' wheels and side pods, but shout out to SRG, of course, Jason, Tyler, and Alex. Shout out to my dad, who's watching right now, my girlfriend, who always watches as well, Macy, and of course, as always, you guys for broadcasting us and allowing people to watch us.
Hey, it's you guys who are really putting on the show. We're just really honored to have the opportunity to be in the press box and get a chance to watch you guys show your talent, really get to talk about it and kind of maybe bring it to all the viewers that we do have. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you in the next races and season and see what all goes on. We know we've watched you really progress a lot throughout this as well. So just looking forward to what all has to come.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that was Jacob Guyton finishing in P8 today, and some great hats off to our substitute producer today, Ron Mons, perfectly showing the slow motion of Guyton kind of fighting one of the corners that he was talking about fighting during the race. That was beautiful. So looking outside, it looks like we have one more driver who has stopped by to chat with us, Nemo Alcazar. Nemo, you are a newcomer here to the SRGs, and you're kind of getting your feet wet in these F4s, and my goodness, trial by fire here to come out here and try to get something done at Interlagos, a very, very difficult track to master. So how did your race go today?
Well, I mostly missed that turn 1 or 2 incident, but that put me up to, I don't know, 12, 13, whatever that was. And I'd say that the racecraft really came out because at a practice, I think the best lap I could do was like a 41.4. And during quali, I couldn't keep it clean, and I got like a 43 something, yet my fastest lap was on lap 12 with a 39.7. So it was great up until perhaps 3 to go and 1 to go. I just spun out and really fell behind, but there was some good racing. Nobody was getting too far, or I was pulling ahead and they were reeling me in. So there was a lot of that going on for most of the race. So I guess in that sense, it was a whole lot of fun until, of course, ran into some banana peels there towards the end.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and that's you don't have to be at the front to find somebody to race with and to have a good time out there. And looks like you were doing that maybe with Dan Clark was running near you, Nathan, as well. So well, fantastic. Love to hear the attitude, and love to see you improving, because I know that you're kind of brand new to all of this and taking advantage of the developmental league and the help and coaching down at Sim Racers Group. So that is awesome to see, and we look forward to watching you, Nemo, continue to improve. And as we conclude the interview, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Jason, Tyler, Jacob, and anybody who was around me. I wasn't paying attention to names. I think thanks for the races.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks, Nemo, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up our interviews. And folks, we are not just about these fantastic F4 races here at SMB. So I want you to go ahead and subscribe to Slow Motion Broadcasting and hit that notification icon so that you don't miss any of the action. And speaking of upcoming action, tomorrow night we'll stay with Sim Racers Group for week 11 of Formula 3 competition at Laguna Seca. That is going to be an absolute barn burner. And again, you fans of Josh Leslie will want to tune in for that as he makes the jump up into those F3 cars. And on Saturday, Weekend Warriors Formula V will visit Lime Rock, and Ron's Race Nights will see iRacing official top split action with Skippy's over at Tsukuba. And on Sunday, we'll have a Weekend Warriors double feature. The Spec Racer Fords will throw down at Long Beach. That is going to be a good one. And Formula Fords at Oschersleben. 1 week from today, we'll be back here with the Formula 4 season finale at Sebring. So I am J.R. Gregory. On behalf of myself, my partner, Kennen Miller, our producer, Racing Ron Mons, and everybody here at SMB, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and look on the bright side, baby. At least it ain't Monday.